Good day, folks. This is Bob, Geopolitics, my weekly roundup. This G20 and, the domestic media is on and on about how everybody's following Modi's pitch. And it just shows to you how domestic politics, where we have a strong man image, is kind of destroying the underlying foreign policy at a lot of times, right? Yeah, sure enough. Here we have at G20, Modi pitches for peace and unrestricted energy supplies, India reducing infra gap with China along LAC. Then there was this French president to host lunch for Modi today. Modi was all over the place. Every wave given to everybody else was deciphered as somebody, everybody wanting to line up, queue up behind Modi. India's contribution to global good hailed. This was Shankar overdoing it a bit. Then you have this India ASEAN upgrade ties to comprehensive strategic partnership. But then you hit reality. New in Delhi must capitalize on Asians' eagerness to engage. It says perhaps the most important glue of the institution, it's an unspoken need to balance China's encroachment and influence in the Indo-Pacific at the expense of member nations, even though some members such as Cambodia and Laos are closer to China than others. India, on the other hand, is still mostly distrusted. Almost 40% of ASEAN respondents believe that India does not have the capacity or will for global leadership and remains fixed on its internal affairs. This is the problem. The headwinds facing us when we go into these G20 meetings. Firstly, how tough and how well liked prime ministers will be shown if you're able to conduct G20 meetings which are attended at least by Western democracies in Arunachal Pradesh and in Srinagar. If they can't, if they don't happen, they end up in all other places like Assam, etc. Then you know whether our kites flying high or what the rest of the world thinks about it. The second thing is what is going to have a problem. Where are the headwinds India is facing? Firstly, you can really do what you're going to do is if you have a strong economy. Here we are in shambles. No matter what our domestic media is suggesting, we are in shambles. And the headwinds are intense. We don't have what it takes to be able to say that we are a humming economy, right? Because with a finance minister like Sita Raman, really with no degree in economics or finance, what can one say? The second headwind is the slide in domestic politics, the capture of the media, the institutions. That's the other problem that we are having, the slide in democratic institutions. And that's going to be a problem as we lead the G20, right? Quad nations, Inc., humanitarian assistance, disaster relief norms, decoding Quad's agenda and focus on cybersecurity. Can Quad prevent increasing cyber attacks in the Indo-Pacific? Probably can, but needs to work hard. This is where our bread is buttered. It's not China or Russia, right? Shankar attends BRICS meet with focus on economy and security. Economy, two guys in the BRICS, guys. Russia and China. The largest, guess what? Trade deficit is with these two countries. Go figure that out. BRICS nations rejects double standards in countering terrorism. Well, bullshit, right? Bullshit at its worst from China when it helps, when it supports it supports Pakistan. What face does it even have to say that it supports it? What are India's options in a multipolar West Asia? That's another place we are playing well on the front foot. It is heartening to note that over the past few weeks, our bilateral high-level contacts with important regional players have intensified. Prime Minister Narendra Modi has met his counterparts from Iran and Turkey, and Indian ministers have visited Saudi Arabia and UAE and Egypt. We need to deepen this trend and expand it to include other regional players such as Israel, Iraq, and Syria. Saudi, India seek to energize ties with undersea cables and also with the rupee trade. Biden to reevaluate ties with Saudi after oil production cut. Well, we got to sit on the fence there. India pitches INSTC Chabar for Central Asian economics. India has big role in Bangladesh's political stability, says Bangla minister. India, Egypt to now explore opportunity in renewable energy, trade, tourism, says Shankar. Even defense equipment, right? India agrees to back Afghanistan banking sector technically. India looks to reinforce ties in immediate neighborhood, which is essentially is given a 15 million to Lanka for Buddhist centers. India's smaller nations talk trade via rupee accounts. That's an important move, right? And also, this is the most important consequential relationship we have, whether we like to believe it or not, whether we hide our head like a pigeon does. U.S. Treasury Secretary looks to boost ties in India. Visit U.S. keen to deepen India ties under friend-shoring plan. India better catch this bull by the horn immediately. Otherwise, this is going to miss the boat permanently, looking for cheap oil where only the government and some chosen people are making money, folks. It's not impacting the Indian economy at all. 3 cheers. So while we're trying to keep the periphery tilted towards us, China is at play, because the Nepalese elections are coming up, and I believe they're really neither here nor there, not what the people want, but no choice, right? New Delhi keenly awaits Nepal elections outcome. And what do you have there? Ahead of polls, China signs pact with Nepal to extend grants for projects, right? China company to build Nepal road linking India borders. Now here's the deal, right? What you see now is, and I'll talk about a little later as somebody's written that note, is that the Tibetan autonomous region, which is being left behind, the effort by China now it feels to control that region is to develop it economically, and it can only do so through India. So that's a big, huge play. India's got to be worried and draw the red lines with Nepal. Big difference since 2014. India no longer thinks small, says PM. It may not think small, right? But unfortunately, our domestic policies are not putting the strength behind this thought process because of some decisions that were taken. India's long view on the US. Our midterms have braced the political middle in Washington, making it a more dependable partner for us. So whoever expected that there was going to be some hulchal in domestic politics in the United States, not so. Admittedly, a Republican House of Representatives and a split Senate would mean legislative paralysis and an early onset of elections campaign. But India can expect even tougher policies against China to find support on both sides of the aisle. The understanding between India and the US to focus on supply chains rather than trade negotiations is also likely to continue. A divided America helped Democrats, absolutely. In a political landscape where the strength of both parties is almost equal, the Democrats benefited from the fear of Donald Trump, the abortion ruling, and a reasonable governance record. There was no red wave in the midterm. It's surprising they are now one up on the Senate, which is extremely important. And secondly, the fewest seats ever lost in a midterm in the House is by Biden. So that says a lot, right? What midterm results will mean for US and the world, says Dhruv Shankar. He says the results are a mixed bag with Republicans likely to win a slim majority in the House of Representatives and the race for the Senate too close to call, but the Democrats won. These dynamics will have implications for the US and the rest of the world. Only thing they're going to have is probably on Ukraine, as everybody's expecting that the aid to them will kind of will petter down a little bit, but against China, there. Full on, right? French show to firm up supply chains, US Treasury Secretary. Democrats under Biden likely to lose less than a dozen House seats, and that was impressive, and that's what happened. No red wave, slim edge to GOP and US midterm races. US polls, what a weakened Biden administration will mean for India. Well, it's not a weakened. I think that was a call too early. It's not a weakened administration. In fact, a lot of stuff that Biden has on his agenda actually works now because the biggest impediment, as most people don't know, was the left in the Democrats, and they have been corralled, right? Twitter spews lies. US president, well, may not any longer because what's his name? Elon Musk has destroyed Twitter with 1,200 people resigning. Senate holds key to Garsati's India's jaw. Well, let's hope after these elections he makes it through. Want to be partner of choice for India, US defense officials. Democrats retain Senate control as House hangs in the balance. US China using coercive economic tools in Iowa. This will continue. Biden, Xi pushed to break ice over frosty relations. Well, personal relationships matter. Modi was out there swinging his charm offensive too. India-China border standoff, a bilateral matter. We will stay away, says Russian envoy. I hope that Russian envoy had stayed off and let us stay on the Kailashis. He bears the burden for it. And Jaishankar bears the burden for forcing the army off Kailashis, right? Decoding China's moves in Tibet. China no longer sees Tibet only as a security barrier. It wants Tibet and the Western region to play a bigger role as the gateway for China's entry into the economic hinterland of South Asia. India, critical. India bats for free Indo-Pacific at EAS amid China-South China Sea claims. It should continue to do that. And this is the important part India must play. As China asserts power, India needs to reconsider engaging with Taiwan. Absolutely, folks. Absolutely. Taiwan, Tibet. The two T's. Critical for India. Cheers. So yesterday at a gathering of our friends, there was this common conversation, got a little heated on the issue of Zelensky must give in and come to the table. There's too much suffering. But the question I ask is, why not Russia? Who started the war? Who's the bully? It's Russia. Let me tell you, and this I had a very similar discussion at a very open MUN, youngsters and kids, and it's amazing how much they know in Chandigarh. And I was amazed, the refrain is the same. Everybody seems to think that Zelensky should give up. It's your land. But remember this, folks, anybody who has this thought, the critical part is if the aggressor enjoys the spoils, then the biggest threat is to India from China. Because next time when that happens, what are we going to do, folks? What are we going to do? Ukraine, peacemaker, India. Jaishankar's Moscow visit was crucial. New Delhi seems more ready to facilitate dialogue, but kind of overblown because Raja Menon puts it right. He says Delhi as peacemaker, the Ukraine conflict seems to have reached a deadlock. There might be many modest and practical ways in which Indian diplomacy could contribute to the peace efforts. However, he says, but India is not the only channel of communication between the US and Russia. Nor are Washington and Moscow totally reliant on third parties. Absolutely true. They're talking to each other. Jaishankar makes it clear India will buy more Russian oil. Jaishankar in India has interest to keep importing Russian oil. But this is the reality. India hopes for regular defense supplies from Russia in winter. It ain't gonna happen, folks. Lot of platforms are delayed. I'm told a frigate is delayed. S-400 is delayed. Lots of them. And it's because the tech chips are not there anymore, folks. So we better find out another way out. India is on the side of peace. Jaishankar on Ukraine. It's land grab in Ukraine. India faces same threats as Germany. And this is the reality. And what this Philip Ackerman gives it right. And that's about the land grab. If you allow land grab and have Zelensky come to the table, then tomorrow there's a land grab by China or by Pakistan, assisted by China. What are we going to do, right? And Gurjeet Singh says the German decoupling. Olaf Scholz's Beijing visit marks Berlin's move towards strategic autonomy. The significance of the visit is that Germany has again shown its desire to attain strategic autonomy from the US, which is kind of impossible, Mr. Gurjeet. Has no guts and glory. They've been neutered after Second World War. And remember, they were responsible for the Second World War. And they could be responsible for the Third World War and human rights violation with the waffling they do. It's all about the economy and money, not about autonomy at all, Mr. Gurjeet. You got it wrong. Foreign Secretary holds meeting with US officials with focus on strategic ties, Ukraine conflict. India and Russia seek polycentric world for Moscow ahead of EM trip. Polycentric. Now the problem with the fancy Jaishankar is coming up with new words, new terminology. Polycentric. What the hell do you mean, Jaishankar? Explain it to us in simple English or Madrasi, Tamil, whichever you want. PM calls for Ukraine ceasefire, says don't curb energy supply. Modi Biden have useful exchange at G20, review key areas of cooperation. This is the only thing India should be worried about. India views on Ukraine war, help chart, draft common league. Only dialogue, diplomacy can end Ukraine conflict, says PM. Absolutely. But Zelensky cannot be asked to give in. Beginning of the end of war, says Zelensky. Absolutely, as you hear this, doctrinal lessons from the Russia-Ukraine war. However, as at the doctrination level, nations have an overarching policy of economic dominance and or degradation towards their adversaries. Here India is important. Second, wars are about the economy and control over resources. Like many world leaders before him, Russian President Vladimir Putin got it wrong despite being a military man. Under his watch, the second strongest army in the world has been reduced to the second strongest military in Ukraine. Hear that. The retreat from Kherson could be for Putin what the Battle of Bulge was for Hitler. The beginning of the end, folks. And that is happening largely because Putin lost touch with reality. He started believing in his propaganda and overplayed his hand one too many times. And that's what you have. Asia after Ukraine is what I'll discuss next. 3 cheers. So in conclusion, withdrawing from key Ukraine city of Kherson, says Russia, moves serious blow to Putin's war effort. Kiev is wary. So this is like I spoke about the end of the story, right? And as Raja Menon writes, lessons of a 7-month war. He says Ukraine conflict reshapes battlefield challenges, understanding of victory and defeat. But what he points out here is very important. The Ukraine war, it was predicted, would be fought like the Second World War, with one side overrunning the other in a blitzkrieg of 4 to 5 days, right? But war has gone backwards to the days of the First World War with no conclusive results in 4 years of fighting. That is what I wanted to read out to you. And C. Raja Mohan writes, Asia after Ukraine. And you got to hear this, right? Putin's misadventure will inevitably diminish Russia on the Asian stage. And this for all those tinted, rose-tinted guys who still like Russia, right? Says Putin's unwise threat that Russia might use nuclear weapons in Ukraine has had a powerful impact on Asia. Although the threat might turn out to be hollow, its security implications in Asia will linger on. The fear that a nuclear power might seize the territory of its neighbor and brandish the nuclear sword to hold on to the illegal occupation has sent a shiver down the spine of China's neighbors, right? Some of them are beginning to strengthen their military capabilities and boost their deterrence against the Chinese threat. In Japan, which is at the receiving end of China's bullying in the disputed territories of the East China Sea, Prime Minister Fumio Kishida has called for a doubling of defense spending in the next 5 years and to build a significant offensive missile arsenal. And to add to this, there is a possibility of the AUKUS being extended to Japan. Troubled times, Fauci, even though he's seen sauntering around and with a smile with Biden, but nothing strategically has changed on the ground, folks. Jai Hind.